in which an affair unfolds, and we see the damage wrought upon the scorned. Chapter 9. Anna was walking with her head bowed, playing with the tassels of her hood. Her face glowed with a bright glow, but this glow was not happy. It was like the terrible glow of a fire on a dark night. Seeing her husband, Anna raised her head and, as if waking up, smiled. "You're not in bed? What a wonder," she said, threw off her hood, and, without stopping, went on into her dressing room. "It's late, Alexey Alexandrovitch," she said from behind the door. "Anna, I must have a talk with you." "With me?" she said in surprise, stepping out from behind the door and looking at him. "Yes." "What's the matter? What is it about?" she asked, sitting down. "Well, let's have a talk if it's so necessary, but it would be better to go to sleep." Anna said whatever came to her tongue, and was surprised, listening to herself, at her ability to lie. How simple, how natural her words were, and how it looked as if she simply wanted to sleep. She felt herself clothed in an impenetrable armor of lies. She felt that some invisible force was helping her and supporting her. "Anna, I must warn you," he said. "Warn me? About what?" She looked at him so simply, so gaily, that no one who did not know her as her husband did could have noticed anything unnatural either in the sound or in the meaning of her words. But for him who knew her, who knew that when he went to bed 5 minutes late she noticed it and asked the reason, who knew that she told him at once her every joy, happiness, or grief, for him it meant a great deal to see now that she did not want to notice his state or say a word about herself. He saw that the depth of her soul, formerly always open to him, was now closed to him. Moreover, by her tone he could tell that she was not embarrassed by it, but was as if saying directly to him, "Yes, it's closed, and so it ought to be and will be in the future." He now felt the way a man would feel coming home and finding his house locked up. But perhaps the key will still be found, thought Alexey Alexandrovitch. "I want to warn you," he said in a low voice, "that by indiscretion and light-mindedness you may give society occasion to talk about you. Your much too animated conversation tonight with Count Vronsky," he articulated this name firmly and with calm measuredness, "attracted attention." He spoke and looked at her laughing eyes, now frightening to him in their impenetrability, and as he spoke he felt all the uselessness and idleness of his words. "You're always like that," she replied, as if she had not understood him at all and had deliberately grasped only the last thing he'd said. "First you're displeased when I'm bored, then you're displeased when I'm merry. I wasn't bored. Does that offend you?" Alexey Alexandrovitch gave a start and bent his hands in order to crack them. Please don't crack them. I dislike it so." "Anna, is this you?" Alexey Alexandrovitch said in a low voice, making an effort and restraining the movement of his hands. "But what is all this?" she said with sincere and comical surprise. "What do you want from me?" Alexey Alexandrovitch paused and rubbed his forehead and eyes with his hand. He saw that instead of what he had wanted to do, that is, warn his wife about a mistake in the eyes of society, He was involuntarily worrying about something that concerned her conscience and was struggling with some wall that he had imagined. "Here's what I intend to say," he went on coldly and calmly, "and I ask you to listen to me. As you know, I look upon jealousy as an insulting and humiliating feeling, and I would never allow myself to be guided by it. But there are certain laws of propriety against which one cannot trespass with impunity. I did not notice it this evening, but judging by the impression made upon the company, everyone noticed that you behaved and bore yourself not quite as one might wish." "I really don't understand," said Anna, shrugging her shoulders. "He doesn't care," she thought, "but society noticed, and that troubles him." "You're unwell, Alexey Alexandrovitch," she added, stood up and was about to go out of the door, but he moved forward as if wishing to stop her. His face was ugly and sullen, as Anna had never seen it before. She stopped and, leaning her head back to one side, with her quick hand began taking out her hairpins. "Well, sir, I'm listening for what comes next," she said calmly and mockingly, "and even listening with interest, because I wish to understand what it's all about." She spoke and was surprised by the naturally calm, sure tone with which she spoke, and her choice of words. "I have no right to enter into all the details of your feelings, and generally I consider it useless and even harmful," Alexey Alexandrovitch began. "Rummaging in our souls, we often dig up something that ought to have lain there unnoticed. Your feelings are a matter for your conscience, but it is my duty to you, to myself, and to God, to point out your duties to you. Our lives are bound together, and bound not by men, but by God. Only a crime can break this bond, and a crime of that sort draws down a heavy punishment." "I don't understand a thing. Oh, my God, and unfortunately I'm sleepy," she said, quickly running her hand over her hair, searching for any remaining hairpins. "Anna, for God's sake, don't talk like that," he said meekly. "Perhaps I'm mistaken, but believe me, what I'm saying I say as much for myself as for you. I'm your husband, and I love you." For a moment her face fell, and the mocking spark in her eye went out. But the word love again made her indignant. She thought, love? But can he love? If he hadn't heard there was such a thing as love, he would never have used the word. He doesn't even know what love is. "Alexey Alexandrovitch, really, I don't understand," she said. "Explain what it is you find." "Please allow me to finish. I love you, but I'm not speaking of myself. The main persons here are our son and yourself. It may well be, I repeat, that my words will seem completely unnecessary and inappropriate to you. It may be that they're caused by an error on my part. In that case, I beg you to pardon me. But if you yourself feel that they are even the slightest grounds, I beg you to think, and if your heart speaks, to tell me." Alexey Alexandrovitch, not noticing it himself, was saying something quite other than what he had prepared. "There's nothing for me to tell. And," she suddenly said quickly with a barely restrained smile, "really, it's time for bed." Alexey Alexandrovitch sighed, and saying no more, went into the bedroom. When she came into the bedroom, he was already lying down. His lips were sternly compressed, and his eyes were not looking at her. Anna got into her own bed and waited every minute for him to begin talking to her again. She feared that he would, and at the same time she wanted it. But he was silent. For a long time she waited, motionless, and then forgot about him. She was thinking about another man. She could see him, and felt how at this thought her heart filled with excitement and criminal joy. Suddenly she heard a steady, peaceful, nasal whistling. At first Alexey Alexandrovitch seemed startled by this whistling, and stopped. But after 2 breaths the whistling began again with a new, peaceful steadiness. "It's late now. Late. Late, she whispered with a smile. She lay for a long time motionless, her eyes open, and it seemed to her that she herself could see them shining in the darkness. Chapter 10. From that evening a new life began for Alexey Alexandrovitch and his wife. Nothing special happened. Anna went into society as always, visited Princess Betsy especially often, and met Vronsky everywhere. Alexey Alexandrovitch saw it, but could do nothing. To all his attempts at drawing her into an explanation, she opposed the impenetrable wall of some cheerful perplexity. Outwardly things were the same, but inwardly their relations had changed completely. Alexey Alexandrovitch, such a strong man in affairs of state, here felt himself powerless, like a bull, head lowered obediently. He waited for the axe that he felt was raised over him. Each time he began thinking about it, he felt that he had to try once more. That, by kindness, tenderness, and persuasion, there was still a hope of saving her, of making her come to her senses, and he tried each day to talk with her. But each time he started talking with her, he felt that the spirit of evil and deceit that possessed her also took possession of him, and he said something to her that was not right at all, and not in the tone in which he had wanted to speak. He talked with her involuntarily in this habitual tone, which was a mockery of those who would talk that way seriously, and in that tone it was impossible to say what needed to be said to her. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.